for several years.
Well, so that was one issue about doing it before. So a few guys, I think Rabbi Kranzler and I think Charlie, I think they listened to Rabbi Sugarman.
Yeah. That's what we did during the height of the pandemic.
Right, does it first thing in the morning. And so
And
that,
to get back to business, so the CM is gonna be, the guy in the Lox and Bagels doesn't have an evening program anymore, can't get any workers. So we're gonna go back to our
yeah,
next Thursday, 4 o'clock. Okay, roll your own. And Mincha is 4
Thursday,
outside of you. 4 p.m. and Mincha is at 4.
and that's going to be on the Thursday, on the 13th.
And we'll provide, with the address. For those who are not gonna be.
All right, well, we'll get that to the bulletin and then it's. Right, okay. Okay, nobody else is on yet. Hopefully they'll remember we're starting at 8:20.
Take the mask off. Just breathe a little.
Okay, well, as we're getting organized, a reminder that as of Friday morning, January 14th, the new Gemara is Moed Katan. Okay?
Yep.
And Tu B'Shvat is the following Monday, 17th of January. Encourage everybody to have some figs, dates, boxer.
You can handle it. Give you the names.
What if you can handle it? Of course you can.
I think that's short enough. The boxer? Oh, forget about it. Oh, the guy is not here. You have, he ate, it's recent for this week, ate early boxer.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody knows why you eat boxer to be fat.
Why do you eat boxer and
Because
Tu B'Shvat?
guaranteed you didn't eat it during the year.
What?
Guaranteed you didn't eat it during the year.
Yeah.
Ah.
Actually, do you know that from a culinary perspective,
Yeah.
those people that have that they use boxer to be able to make chocolate
Yeah.
items, par of
Yeah.
chocolate. And particularly people who can't eat chocolate or things like that. That's an important use of boxer.
Anyway, tomorrow, starting with tomorrow, if anyone, let us know, give an account.
Okay,
Who's coming next week at 4:45.
all right,
Ruvain or myself.
okay.
Who's coming where?
It's for the seal. We will, since you told me, I will let Andrea know so she can put it into this week's, hopefully weekly, right? Okay, I'm starting the learning sponsors.
Better.
Yeah. Okay. Learning sponsors, a year of learning, Sue and Arnie Garelick in memory of Malcolm Proman and Philip Mann. And Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Henry Rivka Pro Rosna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. And in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Arav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbert Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gitler, Avrameir ben Shimon and Martha Gitler, Charna Bat Yeshaya. Sid is not up yet. Okay. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Saratova, Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef Ben Chaim, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher. Friends of Nina Moynester, Nechama Azna Bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigders, Zecher Nishmat, Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi. A Month of Learning by Haran Emel Haller in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bat Yehuda Leib, by B. Pizer in memory of her husband, Rav Yisrael Chaim Ben David, by Tova and Leo Zimmer in memory of her mother, Henya Bat Rav Beryl, and her father, Aaron Ben Yosef Mordechai, Perry and Jill Meltzer in memory of his mother, Malka Bat Baruch, and his sister, Golda Leah Bas David Halevi. All Week of Learning by Marvin and Becker in memory of his father, Yaakov Ben Meir, by Judy Iger in memory of her mother, Bela Bas Anshel Yitzchak. May Shema's Heaven Aliyah, Crank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shem Letzliah, Machol Ben Israel, Good Gaben Shtia.
Amen.
Okay. Steve, is that you?
That's me.
You sound a little hazerick.
I'm okay, thank God.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so we should be on Kaf Daled Amud Aleph, right? Okay. I don't see Sid. All right, okay. He was in show, right? Pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so remember we were talking about the fact basically as we start up that Gemara was saying how many psukim needed to be read in a particular section. 3 psukim for an aliyah, okay, number 1, and 21 psukim for a haftorah, okay. And Michael had pointed out that as the Gemara continues, basically for the maftir, the one reading would recite 3 psukim at a time, and then the Matargaman would do 3. Okay, right? So that would be, if that would be the case, how do you get? Why did he say 10 would be sufficient? Okay, because he could do 3, translate 3, do another 3, another 3. So that gives another 3, another 3. So that's 3 sets ultimately of 3, which means you get actually 18. Okay, then the final, okay, 3, okay. But if then the Gemara asked, well, doesn't that mean you get 24? If that's the case, right? If you get the case. So the Gemara then came back to us, right? That was the argument. That was what we last saw, right? Right. So he said, and then, okay, was the case. So that was what the discussion was. Then the Gemara went back with a new Mishnah, right? So finishing up, that was on the bottom of Kaf Gimel, right? Hakorei b'Torah lo yifchot mishlosha psukim, right? No less than 3. Lo yikra l'maturgaman yoter mipasuk echad, and not read more than 1 verse for the maturgaman. Then we got to the top of Kaf Daled, today's daf, right? Ubenavi shlosha, and with 3 for the Navi, Havi shloshtin v'shalosh, okay, partial. That would give us how many? 33.
No. If the 3 psukim were in 3 different parshas.
Right. Okay. So it says have. So then that. So we got into the question of inyan, and that's where we're going to pick up really. So the Gemara. I'm going to start again from there at that point. Havu shloshtan shalosh parshiot. if the sections in the Navi were three sections or different topics
Right.
or things like that, Korin echad echad. Then, says the Mishnah, the Gemara, one would read one at a time. Okay, worse one topic, then a second, then a third. Right? Now the Gemara picks up where we left off, brand new. Okay, Medalgin benavi. One can skip around from one section and then a navi to another section. Right? Ve'ein medalgin b'Torah, but we do not skip from one section of reading in the Torah to another section. Va'ad kama hu medaleg, asks the Gemara. How is it possible to skip? Ad kadei shelo yifsok hameturgaman. Okay, so in other words, the implication being is that given the time that it would take the reader to roll the Torah, okay, to a new location, okay, if the Meturgaman has not completed, then he can go ahead and read, okay, a new section.
And because
Roll
the
it and do a
argument
new,
will finish when
Right.
it's finished.
right?
rolling.
Roll and get to the new section. Meturgaman is finished. He can then continue with the new section.
When
Okay.
he's saying that medallion the Torah, what about the time of Sibur?
What?
The time of Sibur.
That's not the only question. It's a good one, Marvin. But we have another example on Yom Kippur, right? Doesn't the Kohen Gadol also, the Torah reading skips from one section to another, and the Kohen Gadol was supposed to do that.
The Gemara address.
And the Gemara is going to address that. So that's the example it uses. But your question is a valid question. Aren't there times when there is a skipping? Okay? All right, so let's see what happens. We're now on the Gemara, on the fourth line down on Kaf Dalet Amud Aleph. Harvey, are you here? Okay, hopefully. All right. Hani Shlosha Psukim Keneged me. Okay, so why about, says the Gemara, these three psukim? Okay, all right, why do we say that the Torah reader has to say three psukim? Amar Rav Asi, says Rav Asi, Keneged Torah Nevi'im Uktuvim. Okay, parallel to the three different sections of Tanakh. Velo Yikra Lemeturgaman Yoter Mi Pasuk Echad Ubenavi Shlosha Psukim. And one should not read, okay, regarding the role of the Meturgaman, more than one pasuk of the Torah at a time, or three psukim from Navi at a time. Ve'im hayu shloshtan shalosh parshiot. And according to we say here, which really clarifies what the Gemara started off with at the top of the Amud. And if the three sections of Navi were three separate topics or three separate units or segments, paragraphs, Korei echad echad. One reads them one at a time. And now we see it spells it out. Kigon, for example, Kiko Amar Hashem Chinam Nimkartem, as in that case. Another case, Kicho Amar Hashem Elohim Mitzrayim Yered Imi Barishona. That's another example. Va'ata Mali Po Neum Hashem. Okay, so those are three examples of three different situations. Okay.
Three examples of skipping.
Right.
We don't do that today.
These are three examples of verses. One that
Verses-
together, they're
verses
totally different in Yonam.
Are in all in Navi,
Right, and
but
they're
they
all
are
done by
different
that.
topics, right? Different
Right.
themes.
Right.
Right? Okay, clarifying. I'm going to suggest the Mishnah came back. Medalgin b'Navi ve'ein medalgin b'Torah. We can skip within sections of Navi, but not within sections of Torah. We're minhu, but we're going to challenge this. All right. And here's where we get to the example of the Kohen Gadol and his reading. Korei, okay, and the Torah you just said that we can't skip it all in the Torah whatsoever. Korei acharei mot va'ach be'asor. So on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol reads first one section and then another section, and he skips. V'hakam medaleg, and here he's skipping. Amar Abai lo kasha. So by it's not a problem. Why? Kan bichdei sheyifsok haturgaman. In one case, it's so that the maturgaman can recite. Kan bichdei shelo yifsok haturgaman. And in another case, okay, where there's no maturgaman to translate. Okay, in other words, it's before the reader is ready to continue. Vaha alakatan. But here it says he went up. In other words, it went from one to another. Medalgin benavi ve'ein medalgin b'torah. But here again we say that one can skip in regarding navi, but not skip in regard to the Torah. Va'ad kama hu medaleg. And up to what point? What's the time frame? Ad kadei shelo yifsok haturgaman. Until the point where he can roll and get to the new section and start the new section, okay, or is ready to start the new section. Let's put it that way, when the Maturgaman finishes. Miklau de B'Torah, klau uklau lo. This would seem, this general principle would seem then to tell us that one is, I'm going to phrase it, never able to skip in the Torah. Okay, but Ela Amar Abai lo kasha. Says Abai here too. That's not problematic. Kan be'inyan echad, kan b'shtei inyanot. Here, and when we're talking about one topic, okay. Here we're talking, right? Here we're talking about two topics, two different themes, issues. Vahatanya, says the Gemara. But aren't we taught elsewhere in a Braita? Medalgin b'Torah be'inyan echad, u'benavi b'shnei inyanim. That regarding the Torah, we can skip in regarding one in the same topic, but in regarding Navi, we can skip from one topic to another. Kan v'kan, b'chdei shelo yifsok haturgaman. Both in this case, in regarding the Torah, and in the other case, in Navi, it's a situation where the, right, shelo yifsok haturgaman, where the translator, the maturgaman, doesn't stop. Okay? Tanya Ida. That might be the reason, that might be the issue that Abai is hinting at. It's really, if we're talking about kapara as his main theme, okay, that's really one topic. Okay, all right, okay. Tanya Ida. We have another bright that teaches as follows: Ein medalgin minavi lenavi, that we don't skip from one navi to another navi. Okay, ubenavi shel shnayim asar midaleg, but in the Treyasar, okay, the 12, what we call sometimes the minor prophets, okay, that is considered all one unit. There you can skip from one to another. Not only that, but we actually have a major haftorah. What, right? Reuven was just saying, right? We have a major haftorah in regards to Seret Yemei Tshuva, right? Shabbos Shuvah, if I remember correctly, right? That is the haftorah where we do skip. Okay.
It's a whole different plot.
But they're all within the same, right?
Unit.
They're all in Treyasa. Okay.
One role.
One unit.
One year. Ubilvad shelo yidaleg misofa sefer l'tchilato. But so long as he doesn't skip from the end of the book back to the beginning, that's too big a jump. Okay. All right. Well, they did it on the cloth back then. Right. So that's okay. So the implication just as quick aside, the implication here seems to be what the concern is tircha de tzibura, okay? That the people don't have the Sitzfleisch to, all right, the issue.
Let me
Okay,
ask you something on, let's say on Simchas Torah.
yeah.
The guy finishes Osa Bracha and he's gotta go to the race. They only have one Sefer Torah. And they gotta go back to the races. How you like that?
Wouldn't like that very much. Wouldn't like it much at all.
Why, you can go, that's right, you can make
You'll make
multiple
chayim.
Chayims.
That's why I
let you make Kiddush.
Right, you don't make it a chayim and then you come back. Okay. Okay, let's go on. New Mishnah. Harvey, are you there? I don't see you or hear you. All right, I'm just a little surprised. Matnitin, Hamaftir ben Avi.
I'm here.
You're here there? Okay, good. Okay, I'm just concerned. Hamaftir ben Avi who pores al shma. The person who is given the, remember, by the way, we said the reason that according to one view, that the reader of the Haftorah is not counted among the 7 readers of the Torah is because he only gets his, quote, Torah Aliyah because of honor to the Torah. Okay? So what happens? How are you going to sort of honor him? All right, if that's the only issue. So our Mishnah tells us other honors are now going to be given out to that person. And this may be the basis for the fact that, as somebody once told me, what they call M&M. M&M, you give the guy maftir and musa. Okay? Never heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So here, however, it's not maftir and musaf, it's maftir and shachris. Notice, what does he do? Hamaftir ben Avi who pores al shma. He is the one who divides up the recitation of the Shema. That's why when Michael made his comment the other day, that we have a semblance of that at the end when somebody calls Baruch Hu. What happens, remember, is the Shliach Tzibur recites Baruch Hu, then there's a break because we answer. All right, then he goes back and says, that I'm suggesting is the original concept, according to some, of Pores al Shema.
That's the dividing.
That's the dividing. Okay?
Yeah, but you have to say the first block as well.
Right. Okay. There's another view as well, which I won't go into right now, but we'll come back at some point. Okay. So he does that. V'hu over lifnei hateva, and he is the one who becomes then the shliach tzibur at that point. Okay. V'hu nosei et kapav. Not only that, but if he's a kohen, he duchens. Now that comes as a question. How can we normally say that if a kohen is the shliach tzibur, how can he duchen? Normally we don't permit that because normally we're concerned that he'll lose his place in the davening. Okay, so here this seems to imply that they do let that kohen shliach tzibur also duchen. Okay, so what happens? V'im haya katan, and if he's a minor, right? Aviv o rabo ovrin al yado. Then instead, either his father or his rebbe is the one who is the shliach tzibur. Okay, katan korei b'torah u'mitargem, says this Mishnah. A minor can read in the Torah and also translate into Aramaic. Aval eino pores al shma, but he doesn't divide the Shema, the right beginning section. Ve'eino over lifnei hateva, but he cannot act as the shliach tzibur. Ve'eino nosei et kapav, and he doesn't duchen. Okay? Now we get to a very interesting phrase. Okay, pochet. Okay? There were at least 4 or 5 different pshatim that I found in Koren, and I don't know how many Art Scroll is going to give. Okay, but I'm going to translate it this way: one not appropriately dressed, such that limbs are exposed. Okay, that would be an example.
So He's not wearing socks.
or not wearing, right? But in either case, I mean, I sort of tried to combine a few of the pshatim.
right.
So we have a concept here that one is not appropriately dressed such that the limbs are exposed, which would clearly imply it's not just an issue of Chazal, but this could even be a contemporary issue as well. Okay? That's why there's an issue sometimes in Eretz Yisrael, if somebody wearing sandals is permitted to daven from the Amud, okay?
Doesn't have socks.
Because he doesn't have socks, exactly. So the answer that they came is again, comes back to the same question here. If you are willing to appear before a head of state, okay, in
that
Israel,
dress.
the prime minister, okay, in that manner of dress, and if that's acceptable, then that's acceptable to be before the Amud, okay? The implication could likewise be applied here too. If you were called to an invitation to meet before the President of the United States, okay, whoever it is, okay. Anyway, the point I'm simply saying is that we understand the concept, okay? Let's go on. Pochet pores et shma umetargem. That person is able to act according to this Mishnah as the one to divide Shema and translate. Aval eino koreh b'Torah, but that person can't read in the Torah. Ve'eino over lifnei hatoiva, and he does not act as the shliach tzibor. So there's the difference between pores Shema and shliach tzibor. Okay, ve'eino noseh et kapav, and he does not duchen. Okay. Now we go on to other topics of other individuals, okay, as to whether they can perform certain ritual tasks, okay? And I think we'll find it, I did at least, particularly, okay? Suma, a person who is blind. Pores et Shema umitargem, is able to divide the Shema, okay, or recite Baruch Hu, and translate. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol shelo ra'a me'orot miyamav, eino pores al Shema. According to Rabbi Yehuda, in the Mishnah, one who has not seen the divine luminaries, I'll translate it that way, okay, should not do the dividing of Shema. Gemara Maitama, what's the reasoning? Okay, Rav Papa Amar Mishum Kavod. According to Rav Papa, okay, why is the person beginning of the Mishnah, okay, given these other honors? Mishum Kavod, because of honor, since his maftir reading is not considered an honor, he's given other honor. Okay. Rabba Bar Shimi Amar, he says, Mishum Da'ate Le'insuye, because people might come to argue, to quarrel. Okay. My Beinayu, what's the difference between their two explanations? Ika Beinayu Da'avid Bechinam. Okay. Why? Because somebody who does it for free. Okay. In other words, he does it on a regular basis.
The shliach tzibor is not getting, if the shliach tzibor was getting
Paid.
paid, then, but if the shliach tzibor is not sending paid, then there's no argument.
There's no
why-
argument.
Why give him this covered, why
Give him that. Okay. It's not. And we have another Mishnah. Ve'im hayakatan, says our Mishnah. We learned if he was a minor, aviv o rabo ovrin al yado. His father or his rebbe goes ahead of him. In other words, they would be acting as shliach tzibur. I amart mishum netzuye. But if you use the argument about possible quarrels, katan bar netzuyehu, would somebody have an argument about a minor being the shliach tzibur? Elamai mishum kavod. Okay, so what do we mean then by honor? Katan bar kavodhu, do we say there's an issue of honor regarding a minor? Ela ika kavod aviv ukvod rabo. But there's an issue regarding the honor of his father or the honor of his Rebbe. Okay? And the Gemara then tells us going on, Hachanami here too, ika nitzuye aviv v'nitzuye rabo. But there also could be a situation of a quarrel between his Rebbe and the quarrel between his father as to who should be the Shliach Tzibur. Okay, let's go on. Back now, we're on the top of Kaf Daled Amud Beis. Pochet, again, this person who we said was not properly dressed because there's limbs showing. Pares al Shma, we said that. Bai mine Ula bar Rab Me'abai. And so Ula, the son of Rab, asks Abai the following shaila. Katan pochet, mahu sheyikra b'Torah. What about a minor who is in that clothing situation? May he read from the Torah? Okay, let's say you've got a good case. We talk about a 9-10-year-old. Okay, who could be wearing shorts.
He normally does wear shorts.
Okay. Well, there are a few issues, right? Okay. But could that child be eligible to read from the Torah? Okay. Amarle, he said to him, V'tebaye lach arum. Better that you ask if he was naked. All right. Arum mitama lo mishum kvod tzibur. Okay. If somebody is naked, certainly they would not be allowed to read because of the respect, the honor to the community. Hachanami mishum kavod tzibur. Here too, we will say it is because of kavod tzibur. By the way, just as a quick aside, one might be interested in knowing why is it that members of the British royal family, the boys, are expected to wear shorts up till a certain age, and then only afterwards do they wear long pants. Okay, also has something to do with their royal status and the age at which they're considered, things like that. Anyway, just a separate aside. Back to our point from the Mishnah. Summa pares al shma. A blind person may divide, okay, the Shema. In other words, recite Kol Ad Baruch. Tanya, a Braita teaches, Amru lo le Rebbe Yehuda. Remember, they said to Rebbe Yehuda, Harbe tzafu lidrosh b'merkava. There are many who, I'm going to translate tzafu here is were capable or were able, okay? Anticipated is another phrase. To expound on Merkava. The Merkava is the mysticism connected with the book of Ezekiel in the first chapter, okay? Velo ra'u otami mehem, and they never saw it in their lives. In other words, why do you say that somebody who is blind can't do it? Because they really didn't benefit from seeing the divine, the sun, the moon, etc., the stars. Okay? V'lo ra'u tamimim. V'Rebbe Yehuda. There he would argue, Hatam ba'avnata deliba talya milta. There, in regards to the example of the Merkava, the mysticism, it's the comprehension they have in their heart. In other words, their mental awareness.
Nobody ever saw it.
Okay? Of it, that's what it's dealing with. Okay? Vaha kamechavein v'yada. Here they can at least have some intent, some understanding, and therefore be able to have some, and from that knowledge they can darshan on. Hacha, but in our case of the blind person, mishum hana'ahu, since it's an issue of having benefit from it, vaha lid le hana'ah, that a blind person seems to have I said seems because we'll get to it in the Gemara. Okay, seems to have no benefit from the sun, the moon, the stars, etc. Okay. However, Rabbanan, but the rabbis say as follows: Eat lehana, he does have benefit from it. Rabbi Yossi, as in the example given by Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya has Rabbi Yossi taught them, Rabbi Yossi, Kol Yamai, Hayiti mitzta'er al mikrazeh. Throughout my life, I was bothered, I'm going to say, by this pasuk. What was the pasuk? Where it says, Vahayita mimashesh b'tzaharayim ka'asher yimashesh ha'or ba'afela. That one goes around in the afternoon as if they're going around in total darkness. Okay? V'chima ichpat la'or bein afela la'ora. So what difference does it make for him between darkness, okay, and light? In other words, if a person is blind, how can they see anything, whether it's dark or light? Okay, they don't gain any benefit. Ad shabama aseli yadi, until a certain incident came to my attention, let's say, right? Pam echad hayiti mehalech beishon laila va'afela. One time I was walking, he said, in a time of night where it was total darkness. V'ra'iti suma shahaya mehalech b'derech va'avuka biyado. And I saw a blind person walking, and he was carrying a torch, okay, a flame, all right, in his hand. Amarti lo, and I said to him, Bani, my son, so to speak, avuka zo lamelach, what is the advantage? Why do you have this torch? Okay. Amarli, he said to me, kol zman she'avuka biyadi, b'nei adam ro'im oti, umatzilim oti min hapichatin, umin hakotzim, umin habarkanim. He said to them, so long as I have this torch in my hand, people see me, and they save me from the thistles and from the thorns, okay, and from the pits, from the thorns, and from the thistles. Okay? So, all right, so he does get benefit. So the implication is yes, there is benefit for a blind person. Okay. All right. Okay, let's just. Okay. New Mishnah. Kohen sheyesh biyadav mumin lo yisa et kapav. A Kohen who has any kind of a mum, okay, I'm going to translate mum loosely as disfigurement for a moment. What?
Flaw.
A flaw, right, but you'll see why I want to use the word disfigurement, okay, shortly. All right, should not duchen. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, af mi shahayu yadav tzvuot satis, even one whose hands have a kind of blue dye on them from a plant, okay, right? Lo yisa et kapav, should not duchen, mepnei shaha'am mistaklin bo, because people will tend to look at their hands, okay, in this case, and it will take their mind off the bracha. Okay. Gemara, Tana, our Breita is
But do
cited.
people look in the first place?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Steve's question was Harvey, one of you. Good question. Do people look in the... Okay, all right. Okay, so let's see what happens. Mumin sha'amru, when we say that they have a disfigurement, or a flaw. What are they talking about? Bipanav, with his face, Yadav, his hands, Viraglav, his feet. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he says as follows, Yadav bohakniot, if his hands are spotted, lo yisa et panav, he should not duchen. Spotted in the sense of perhaps there are some sort of white splotches on his hand. Okay? Right? Tanya nami hachi. And we have a Braita that also teaches this. Yadav bohakniot lo yisa. Okay? That a what? It's an illness. Okay? A pigment, issue of pigmentation. Okay? Should not do. Okay? Right? Lo yisad kapav. Okay? Now the Braita goes on. Akumot, if his hands are curved in. Akushot, if his hands are bent sideways. That's why I use the word disfigure as opposed to flaw. Okay? Right? Lo yisa et kapav. He should not do it. Amar Rav Asi, says Rav Asi. Furthermore, Chayfani, one who comes from Haifa. Ubeshini, one who comes from Beit Sha'an. Okay? Now, these were two major communities in the Galil, and the issue that we're getting to here is their pronunciation, okay, of how they pronounce certain letters. Okay, Koren had an interesting note that the problem was they had difficulty pronouncing the guttural letters in Hebrew. Okay, and the Gemara is going to refer to this at some point. But think of the fact that we have chet and hey, or we had, or back then, you had aleph and ayin, those two letters. By the way, the same was true in Bavel. Okay? That also was a situation that because of changes in the Babylonian alphabet, they dropped all guttural letters. Okay? So there also, that is a significant issue. In any case, coming back now, lo yisa et kapav, they should not duchen. Tanya nami hachi, and we have a Braita that teaches, ein moridin lifnei hateva, lo anshe Beit Sha'an, velo anshe Beit Haifa, velo anshe teva onen. We do not allow individuals to be the shliach tzibur, okay? If they are from the community of Beit Sha'an, or the community people from Haifa, or the community of Tevonim, all right? That was another smaller community, but it was in there in the Upper Galilee. Mipnei shekorin la'alfin ainin, because they read aleph like ayins, ula'ainin alfin, and they read ayins like aleph. Okay, it reminds me of a true, yes, Ted.
Would this apply to just regular davening?
Regular davening, right. It just reminds me of a story I heard many, many years ago, one of the first times I was in Israel, okay, about the fact that a particular class in an elementary school used to be outstanding spellers in Hebrew. And then their regular teacher was pregnant. She went on maternity leave, and a substitute teacher came back. And it seemed like their spelling became terrible. Why? Their normal teacher was Yemenite, and she could pronounce the difference between an ayin and an aleph. Their substitute was Ashkenazi, okay? And she couldn't, and therefore that was the implication. So there is that still in Yemenite communities, practice of being able to pronounce the ayin as a guttural, which non-Yemenites, okay, even Mizrach Edot Mizrach, other Sfarim, don't do necessarily. Anyway, that's what it reminded me of. So this example here, okay, is rather strict to say, no, they can't even act as Shliach Tzibur because, and remember again, they did the davening by heart. Okay, so that was the issue partly as well. Okay, let's go on. Amar le Rabbi Chia le Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi as follows. Imalei ata Levi, all right? If you, so what happens? The following story. Rabbi Chia said to the Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi. Rabbi Shimon was the youngest son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, right? And in his day was considered a brilliant student, okay? Who Rabbi, before he died, made him the number 3 position in the Sanhedrin. But he made his oldest son, Rabban Gamliel, the Nasi. Okay? But what happens? He says, Rabbi Chia, Ilmale ata Levi, if you were a Levite, pasul ata min haduchan mishum da'ave kolech. If they would render you ineligible to be up there on the Levitical platform to sing with them. Why? Because your voice is thick. Okay? In other words, maybe his voice was, I don't know, what? Baritone, bass, who knows what. Okay? What happened? Shimon was beroiges when he heard that. What did he do? Ata amar leila avua. He went and he told his father. Okay? Amarle, his father said to him, Zil Emalei, go and tell him. Kashe'ata magia etzel v'chachiti lashem. When you get to that part of the davening, okay, from Isaiah chapter 8, where it has the words of v'chachiti lashem, and there you've got at least one guttural, if not 2, okay? Lo nimseit mecharef u'megadef. Aren't you going to be found out to be a maligner and a blasphemer? Because you're going to pronounce the chet as a hey.
You're going to hit God.
And you're going to hit God instead of imitating God. Okay? That's the point. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna tells us something else. Zav Lagan, a person who's teary-eyed, Lo yisa et kapav, should not duchen. Vaha hahu tahava b'shivavute de Rav Huna. But there was a particular person in the neighborhood of Rav Huna, vahava pares yade, and he did duchen, right? Spread his hands. Says the Gemara, hahu dash be'iro hava. He was familiar to the people in his community. Okay, in other words, they got used to it and therefore they didn't look at his face. Tanya nami hachi, and we have a brighter that also teaches, Zavlagan lo yisa et kapav, a teary-eyed person should not duchen, v'im hayadash be'iro mutar, but if he's familiar to the people in his community, it's permitted. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, let's go on. Suma be'achat me'inav, if one is blind in one of his eyes, lo yisa et kapav, he shouldn't duchen. V'hahahu dahava b'shivavute b'Rabbi Yochanan. But there was such a person in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yochanan, dahava paris yade, and he used to duchen. Hahu dash be'iro hava, but he was familiar in his community. Tanya and a brighter nami hachi also teaches suma be'echat me'enav lo yisa et kapav, that one blind in one eye should not duchen. V'ima yadash be'iro mutar, but if he was known in his community, he's permitted. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Misha haya yadav tzvuot lo yisa et kapav. That was our Mishnah, that if his hands were dyed, painted, whatever, he shouldn't duchen. right? Tattooed, maybe. That would be a good example. Thank you, Marvin. Tanya, Braita, Imrov Anshe Ha'ir Melachtan B'chach Mutar. But if most of the people in that community, okay, if that was their employment, in other words, they were tanners, and therefore the dye used to get on them, on their skin, that was not uncommon, that is, it's permitted for him to duchen. Matnitin, as we go to a new Mishnah. Ha'omer eini over lifnei hateva b'tzevu'in. One who says, I will not act as shliach tzibur because I'm wearing colored garments, right? Af b'levanim lo ya'avor. Even wearing white garments cannot act as shliach tzibur. B'sandal ani over. Wearing sandals, I don't act as shliach tzibur. Yachef lo ya'avor. Barefoot, he cannot go as the shliach tzibur. Ha'uset filato agula. One who makes his tefillin round. Okay? Sakana. That is a cause of danger. Right? Ve'ein ba mitzvah. Not only that, but he also doesn't fulfill the mitzvah. Okay? All right? The problem, Corin at least gave the answer that if you bumped the tefillin into something, it could very well give you a real serious, okay? It doesn't absorb the impact. And a square does. Right?
That's right.
Not al mitzcho or al pas yado. If he put it right, the tefillin on the wrong tefillin, the hand tefillin on his head, or vice versa, or al pas yado, or he puts it on the wrong place, on his palm, instead of on his bicep, right? Harei zo derech haminut. That is the practice of the minim, the sectarians, right? Sipan zahav, if he painted his tefillin gold, v'natna al bait unkale shalo, and he put it on his sleeve, harei ze derech hachitzonim. That is the practice of the outsiders. In other words, those that weren't heretics, but they were probably non-Hebrews that were putting on tefillin at the time. Gemara Ma'itama, what's the reasoning? Okay, that we raise this issue about white or colored garments or other things. Chayshin and Shema minut nizrakabo. We're concerned lest there be some heresy involved in him. Ha'uset filato agula sakana ve'ein ba mitzvah. If he says it's a danger to when you make your tefillin round instead of squared off, lema tanina laha tatanu rabbanan. Let us say that we've learned this based on what the rabbis already taught. Tefillin merubaot halacha leMoshe miSinai. That the tefillin are squared off, that's a law according to Moshe from Sinai. Va'amar Rava b'tafran ube'al kasonam. We're talking about their seams and their diagonals. Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, matnitin da'avida ki am goza. Okay, we're talking here, our Mishnah is really talking about a situation where they made the tefillin round like a nut. Okay, think of a walnut in a shell. Okay, that's the best example that I could give, would be that size. And we're going to stop right there. Okay, for today. Then we'll start the new Mishnah tomorrow. Okay. All right, so everybody take care and stay well, everybody. All right.
Thank you, Reb. All the best.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Now, what? Triple question.
As much as you eat,
You roll your own.
You're on your own.
you know,
You roll your own.
You can just get French fries or.
Well, you order off the menu and whatever you'd like, and therefore that's. All right. Okay, Harvey. All right.
You know,
Yeah, Harvey, and, okay, just
Fine,
that
thank you.
Mel announced that the seal is going to be on Thursday, January 13th, 4 o'clock at Avi's at Century Grill. 3:45 outdoor from Indica,
Thursday?
Thursday, January 13th.
Call that day.
That's well, you know what they say in Yiddish? You can't dance at two chasanas at the same time. Some
Actually,
people try
I know.
to, right?
Have a good day.
Take care.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The freaking is that the Marvel's